Hello, I am Orange Cat, and I'm back today to analyze another Arthur episode since, according to my view counts, that's a topic a lot of people want to talk about, apparently. So, this episode was called Muffy's Car Campaign. It was part of season 22, is the fourth episode of season 22, and dear God, it was a bad episode. Like, okay, let's compare it right off the bat with Mr. Ratburn Special Someone. Here, like that one was very subtle with its messaging. Like, and I think that was part of the success of the episode was you just had at the end of the episode just nonchalant. Oh, by the way, Mr. Ratburn's marrying a guy. Like it wasn't like the whole focus of the episode wasn't. Oh, look, Mr. Ratburn's a gay man. It was just like, oh, at the end of the episode, oh, he's marrying the chocolate guy, and that was just like the thing, and that was it. That was as far as it really took that idea, which is great because it showed, okay, this is an everyday thing. It doesn't need to be like overanalyzed. It doesn't need to be talked about at nauseum. It's just a thing that happens, and the best way to treat it is just as if it's just a normal everyday thing. However, this episode was about the environment. It was about the concept of global warming. We began with the lunch lady, Miss McGrady, giving the kids these weird vegetables because, oh, we can only give vegetables that are grown locally by small farms and stuff. And, most of the vegetables usually get like hundreds of miles away, is like this avocado. Oh, it's 2,000 miles away. Just say it's from Mexico. Most avocados from either Mexico or California. And anyhow, and then basically the kids start talking about it, and then you have Francine. Francine always is the character that does this. Is like Miss McGrady's right. We should stand up for the environment. And first off, like let's form a committee, and everyone's just fine with it because like it's cool. It's like another after school club, right? And that's just a normal thing. And then like they start coming up with this idea. I forgot who specifically came up with the idea, but it's like, hey, let's make it so like cars are waiting for kids outside, don't idle. Aside, my school did this. Like my middle school did this like in 2007, 2008. Like this isn't a new idea, and they're acting like that's like a new idea, but whatever. And then really, you just have Francine, of course, throughout the episode, just get more and more carried away with this, and then like you get the parents to successfully get them to stop idling. They even get a sign up. That's the sign that at least one of these pictures I've got is gonna have. And then basically, and everyone's like cool about it. Francine's like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if like we can really cut down the number of cars driving to school in the first place? And let's make it so all the kids like ride the school bus, which right off the bat you could find big problems with. Because, for example, I used to ride the bus when I was growing up, but I stopped because there's this thing called bullying that happens a lot in buses. And usually the bus driver doesn't care. The bus driver's just there for her paycheck, whatever whatever small wage she's being paid to just drive. She doesn't care, especially when there's like 40 kids on the bus. I mean, what's she gonna do? Discipline all of them? No, she's like, I'd rather just focus on driving. And and a lot of kids that way, but like, well, I'm just gonna have my mom or dad drop me off on their way to work. That's a very common thing. And like, if you're really gonna make all the kids drive buses, that's something that would need to be addressed pretty early on. You can't be like, oh, you got bus funding now, ride the bus. It doesn't work like that. But nothing aside, back to the episode. And and Francine's like, we can make it so like eventually there's no cars on the road. And Muffy freaks out, rightfully so, because her dad owns a huge car lot. So that's the family business right there. She's playing around with. So she panics, and she's like, Dad, what would you do? He's like, oh, honey, I would be a dog groomer, but don't worry, business is great. I got this new car coming in called the Mallard. I heard it's gonna sell well. And then like you have this whole thing where like all the kids get gung ho about it. They get signatures. Muffy's like skirting responsibility for it. And at the end, she dumps all the signatures, says, oh, I talked to the principal about it, but it was a no sell. And then Francine calls her out on it. And then Francine's like, you suck. You don't care about the environment. You suck. Anyhow, like you get Muffy kind of be like, well, it's like my family business. And then they all meet a happy ending here where, oh, it turned out that the Mallard, the car the dad was talking about, was an electric car. And then not just that, but they get the new buses, to be electric powered, which I guess is pretty cool. And they had to find a way to end it that made everyone happy, so I guess that worked well. At the same time, though, dear God, Francine was unbearable in this episode. Basically, she was just the whole point with her was just her getting more and more gung ho to the point where she was impossible to like. The sad thing is, she's supposed to be the likable character because she's doing the morally right thing in this episode. And again, like this show, episodes earlier did a great job of being subtle with social message. Pronounce that word today. But like in this episode, it was so overbearing, over the top. Like this is like almost exactly like the episode where Francine created the Lakewood Pride Committee. If you remember that episode, she got Buster to be like a puppet leader of it. And basically, she basically turned the school into a borderline fascist state for it. I'm not kidding. Look that episode up. It's called Pride of Lakewood. Like it turns into like Nazi Germany or some shit. It's actually pretty interesting. But yeah, like she gets gung ho, starts acting like a fascist again because Francine fascist don't forget the letter F, so it has to be true. And then basically at the end of the episode, she has to be like, okay, I guess I was a little too carried away. But again, this episode over the top with the messaging, being like completely avoiding the fact that simply removing cars is going to create a lot of problems with how cities are built, since cities are spread out these days. So it's like some parts of cities like 10, 20 miles apart from each other. So unless like you can build high-speed rails connecting every single building or something, we're gonna need cars, or at least some form of gas-run transportation. We can maybe transfer to electric in some capacity. But anyhow, yeah. I mean, and this is just like the episode last season or season before, which was unironically an 11-minute commercial for John Lewis. Like, I forgot the name of that episode. It barely even had a plot. It was just like, oh, Miss McGreedy works a lot for us. Her life sucks. Let's protest so she gets more money. Oh, by the way, John Lewis happens to be coming to the school. Let's talk about how awesome John Lewis is for 10 minutes. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, right off the bat, like, that's what the episode was. But again, I personally believe we need to take steps to address climate change. However, I think part of the problem with getting help towards climate change was the general attitudes of the people trying to get the changes. Like they can be so overbearing, over the top to the point where they're just unlikable. Like part of like policy making, part of like just getting your voice heard is being charismatic and just basically being like a mean person, basically just telling people, oh, you have to, or trying to quote unquote have the moral high ground, act holier than thou is gonna hurt. It's not gonna help your cause. And I think this episode doesn't really good job of showing it. It just shows if you're overbearing, you can get people to do what you want, and that's a good thing if you're doing it for the right thing. Which at the same time, Road to Hell is paved with good intentions, and that's so just really failed to show. Anyhow, that's just my opinion this episode. What do you guys think? Leave your comments down below. Do you think this was a good episode? Do you agree with me thinking that it was very overbearing with its message? I really like hearing your guys' opinions. I really love your guys' support. If you want more content like this, please subscribe and hit the notification button. And that's all I really have to say. I am Orange Cat, and that is all.